Welcome to Residing in North Idaho, community and lifestyle podcast for North Idaho. And we have special guests today I'm pretty excited about. So my name is Seth Horst. I've got my business partner, David Fowler, and we've got the Kootenai County Sheriff, Bob Norris, back in the house again today. And I've been instructed to say it like this, his campaign manager. Yeah? No.
The one and only Bruce Mattare. That's it. The one and only.
He told me he threatened me. It was a big deal. So, yeah, I did my part. No, we have one of the Kootenai County Commissioners, Bruce Mattare, here as well, and he's been on the podcast before. So we wanted to have them both on and talk, about the county and some of the things that are going to be coming up for the Sheriff's Department and the county in general. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know we wanted to. Dave had some good questions. Maybe we should pop into some of that to begin with.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously election year. Okay.
I did not. Wait, what? 2024 for office this year? Seriously?
Obviously election year. So it's a big thing.
There any
and so I think there's a lot of questions we'll probably pose to you to kind of see where you stand and certain things that we can expect should you be back in office for the next 4 years. And why, honestly, why are you, you've done 4 years now as a sheriff. Why are you running again?
Well, I'd like to back up just a second because what you just hit on about how this community loves its law enforcement. I was talking to one of our laterals the other day, and he says, I came here from a different state, California. And he said, there's one thing that I really like about being a law enforcement officer up here. People tell you how much they appreciate you all the time. Mm. And he says that he gets that so often. And where he came from, he never got that. Right. So we do appreciate and we support law enforcement. This sheriff supports law enforcement. This sheriff supports the men and women out there on the ground doing the work 100%. You're out there doing proactive law enforcement, you're going to get my support all the time.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people are happy about that. Like you said, guys coming from other states that are still doing the job at lateral up here. I mean, that's huge. That's a big frustration. I worked in law enforcement in California, and during my career, I watched my ability to enforce the law slowly erode to where, it's like, what are we even doing here? And I think you see the result of that in those communities of what's going on right now. So I think that is one of the things that keeps North Idaho an amazing place to live.
I think Washington is racing Oregon and California to the bottom, and I think they're winning. We had a Washington legislature that is telling law enforcement officers what they can and cannot do, what they can and cannot arrest.
Right.
What type of use of force protocols they have to put in place. And it's not good. But I am very thankful to have Bruce as one of the commissioners. I have to tell you that, as you know, Dave, and you too, Seth, that there's a culture in county government that don't pay law enforcement officers what they're worth. And we've lost a lot of people. What were those statistics? How we did a review and...
Yeah, what we looked at was what does it actually cost to recruit and train a sheriff's deputy? And we looked at every expense, and that was to train them only to the point of when they were signed off to drive their own cruiser. And we added up about $105,000, $106,000 in just expense. And then what we did was we looked at over time, how many deputies did we hire and how many were still with us after 5 years. And between 2010 and 2017, we hired 62 patrol deputies and 33 had resigned within 5 years.
Wow.
Went to another agency.
Yeah. And that added up to about $3.5 million of county taxpayer money that was used to recruit and train deputies only for other agencies to get the benefit of that training.
That's funny.
Insane number.
I never heard about that up here, but I resonate that. Being I was with San Bernardino County Fire, and we used to call ourselves training grounds for Orange County and LA County Fire because people would leave us constantly. I mean, here's the thing. If you're good at what you do, you're going to get compensated for that. You can look at that. That is across the board in every single job. When you find somebody that's good at something, they're going to get compensated. They're going to get recruited by somebody that's willing to pay them more. And that's where you're going to see them go. That's where the good doctors go. That's where, if you're good at what you do and you can continue to do the same thing, people tend to have a tendency to flock to where they can get paid more. And with our department, we did that. We were a training ground and we lost a ton of good firefighters, captains, engineers to other places because we didn't pay them.
But there's something else that goes with that you didn't mention, and that is that the agency gets stuck with the people who can't go to these other places, and they're not as high a quality person a lot of times. And that's what's important, is you want to keep your talent, because that's what keeps you from spending money on lawsuits, and also is much more efficient.
I like how you bring the business mindset to the commissioner's office, because I get your email updates, and it seems very common sense to me, but clearly it's not common sense. And this is like some new growth that you're pushing here, and I appreciate that. So
where we're at, where we're
Right.
going, I am a little concerned with this next presidential election, that our rights, especially as they pertain to the Second Amendment right and Fourth Amendment right, will continue to be eroded here in the United States. So I am going to continue to put that in the forefront, continue to change the culture of the sheriff's office to make it a rights first office, to make sure that the people's, your First, Second, Fourth Amendment rights are upheld. So that's something that is going to be first and foremost. I believe that they're using different type of warfares. They're using a lawfare warfare. They're using a legislative warfare. They're using a political warfare.
There's a cultural warfare too.
Absolutely.
But they're also using a database warfare, because once you get on a database, let's say a no-fly list or something like that, it's very hard to get off.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck getting off.
Yeah. So if you, they tried to do this several years ago with veterans. Remember how they tried to strip them of their gun rights?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go out and you buy a gun, they'll do a background check, and maybe you might get denied because they're afraid that you might have some sort of PTSD or something. And so that is to them, that's a danger signal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it's death by 1,000 cuts. So, and one of the things the sheriff, I think, has had a challenge is changing the culture, because you didn't inherit a culture that thought like that as much.
Yeah, and certainly what we've seen with law enforcement agencies during 20 and 21, pretty appalling.
Yeah.
So we don't want to see that ever here in Kootenai County. We don't want to see a woman that's watching her son play football that gets tased in a open field stadium for not wearing a mask.
Right.
That will not happen here in Kootenai County, for sure.
Mm.
So that's certainly first and foremost on my mind. We would like to also expand our number of volunteers. We have currently 205 volunteers on the sheriff's office. Vast majority of that is our search and rescue team and Office of Emergency Management. I did bring back our chaplain program. It was suspended when I took office, but we did bring that back, and I think we're up to about 7 chaplains right now. But yeah, we want to expand, probably do some sort of a training to a degree for our volunteers. As you know, Dave, Idaho Post suspended the Reserve Academy about 8 years ago.
Right.
And they got rid of level 2 and level 3 officers. And so here in Idaho, you only have a level 1 reserve officer. And I am in communication with other sheriffs and legislators to see if we can't change that, and with our post council to change that.
So are you in support of having reserves?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I have a question for you on that, because I know there's some people that oppose reserves, and I pointed out like this, is that sometimes, especially in jobs like law enforcement, where it's something that you see a lot of law enforcement officers make mistakes, and they're doing it every day. You get somebody like me that's only been a reserve, and I come in maybe once a month. How do you work with that when the liability could be higher with somebody that's not training in something every day, and it's not the way, they're not a professional law enforcement officer and they've been doing this every day? Is there a risk there?
Oh, there's a little bit of a risk, right. But generally they're going to have a lot of training. And the ones that I really like are people like you guys right here that have some past law enforcement experience. How long have you been gone from?
Just 2 years.
So,
yeah.
So you're within the 5 years. So I say we just swear you in right now.
Let's do it.
I still have my special deputy badge at home, so I don't think you guys ever took it.
No, I say we just do it right now. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea.
There we go.
Dave doesn't say no to things, so this is perfect. He'll fly right into it. When do you need him at work? Saturday night? Let's go.
What's wrong with tonight?
Even better.
Oh my goodness.
What do you say? It's a challenge. I'm throwing it out there.
Oh, come on.
Is that
We
a
did
job?
that this.
So
Next question.
we'll do that on the next podcast. We'll swear you in.
That would be hot. We can build it up. Dave's getting
Goodness.
sworn in. Yeah, he's coming back.
We'll get some money for a car for you and
Yeah.
equipment and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So
Perfect.
yeah.
He'd be a good
Be in good shape.
PIO. Actually, he's a good face for the.
Mm.
You
department.
know what? I think it's going to be a great fit. I'm looking
Oh,
forward
boy.
to it. I can't wait.
This is fun. All the attention's on you. I like. this.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm blushing.
Look at that. You're highly sought after.
All right. Where were we?
What was the next question?
Yeah.
Anyway?
Continued after the podcast. We'll work on this a little more.
So that going back to it. So the big reason why you're running again, why are you trying to stay in office? What do you want to accomplish? You brought up a few of those things, but what is the big reason why you're running for sheriff again?
We want to continue to change the culture of the sheriff's office to a rights-oriented culture, to consider the rights, especially what we've seen in 2020 and 2021. Certainly want to do that. We still want to improve some of the culture. You know, you can change a policy, but just because you change a policy doesn't mean you change a culture. Culture always trumps policy, period.
Yep.
So on an agency of our size, it takes a little bit to change a culture. I can change a policy in one day. Doesn't mean anything. We have to change a culture. And right now we have a great culture in the making, and we're going forward. And the sheriff's office has sustained its employment status, and we're looking very, very, very good. So, yeah, that's part of why I want to stay. The men and women also want me to stay. I got 93% of the sheriff's office vote to run for reelection.
Okay.
So
It's a pretty good number.
it's a good number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good number.
Yeah.
Bruce, you think that's a good number?
It's a good start.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a good start.
I think that's important. I mean, we've all worked in places where, there's it doesn't matter how hard you try. There's always a disconnect. There's always some disconnect between the people on the floor and the people that are in admin. There's always going to be that. And you've
And it
always
could
heard,
be perception.
it could be.
It could be only perception. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's something there, and so I think it's important if you have the people that are on the floor, the guys that are going out every night, that are away from their families doing those things. If they want you back, I think that's important, because it's hard for you to accomplish what you're trying to do if you don't have the support of the men and women that are working with you.
Yeah. And you're not going to please everyone. There's always people that, for whatever reason. So
Absolutely.
That's just what it is.
If you're in a leadership position, or if you're in a management position, absolutely, you're going to have to make decisions based on policy, based on best practices and past practices. And sometimes you don't even like the decisions you have to make, but they have to be made.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it's also a testament to what you've brought to the sheriff's office, the community engagement, pushing some of the deputies out of their comfort zone and engaging the community and seeing that. And so it's clearly a testament that they're behind what Sheriff Norris is doing.
How are the current staffing levels, and are you getting enough applicants?
We are not hemorrhaging.
Okay.
We have stabilized.
Is that because of you guys got a recent pay raise, right?
We did get a recent pay raise. We're finally coming up to a competitive level with other agencies here in the Pacific Northwest. Much needed.
Yeah.
But then again, we're talking about a culture. There is still a culture in Kootenai County government and in some of the forums here in North Idaho to starve law enforcement.
Yeah.
And what's helping is my community engagement. I'm out in the community every day. I am involved in community service organizations, and that helps. What we've seen with some of the civil unrest over the last few years, what happens when you defund law enforcement or not properly fund law enforcement, that's what happens.
Yeah.
So got a few things going in our direction. Really looking forward to have Dave come on as a reserve, because there's some shifts there we need to fill.
This is good. Yeah.
So yeah.
Graveyards.
Yeah.
Weekend graveyards.
How do we segue back into that?
Oh my gosh.
amazing.
Can
Yeah.
we get him working at the county building?
Well,
Oh yeah.
Can you-
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
really
Edit
good.
this?
No, he's really good at like every job that he does. So, yeah, I think he'll do great.
Nice.
killing me.
I'm sorry. It's too fun. So I hear this a lot. So we have a lot of clients that come up here from out of state, and there's always a consideration, and they're all a lot of law enforcement clients. There's always a consideration of, hey, do I want a lateral up there? And the question always comes up. And I think, so a lot of these guys, they look at Spokane or that side because the pay is better. But the thing that keeps them coming back to Idaho is the fact that, the officers in the Washington side are not really allowed to do their job. And they feel like they could easily get hung out to dry, liability things. And I think that's the draw here to keep these officers in Idaho, because they want to be cops and they don't want to get hung out to dry by their department if, they have a use of force or something like that. I feel like the sheriff's department does a good job of taking care of their people in that regard.
100%.
Yeah.
100% we do. Absolutely.
Okay.
And everything that you said is absolutely true. In addition to this, we can still make a difference as a deputy sheriff, as a police officer here in Kootenai County on a person's life. We can still make a difference. I remember I was in a burger joint, and this was years ago, and I see this guy coming in, and I'm thinking, okay, he looks familiar, looks like a gangster. He's tatted up, and he starts sizing me up, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to end good here. I have 2 kids with me, and he starts walking over. I'm getting ready. I'm looking at where my portals are. I'm looking at who's going to be a friendly, who's not going to be a friendly. All these things are going through my mind. And then he extends his hand and he says, "You're a cop, aren't you?" And I said, "Who's asking?" And he says, "You know what? You've arrested me a few times, and I want to say you saved my life." He goes, "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and I wouldn't be able to be here for my kids." We can still make that difference here in Kootenai County.
Yeah.
You can't make that difference in Spokane. You can't make that difference in Washington.
Yeah, that's huge. And that may be the best retention tool that you have, really. Also, is, you have the culture, and then you have, hey guys, you signed onto this job for a reason, and that's to make that difference, and you could still do it here. And that's huge.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we're still looking so forward to Dave coming on board to be able to make that difference in this community. Felony Flats, here we come.
I'm gonna rename this podcast.
It's so good.
My goodness.
The day Dave went back to work.
Oh.
The recruitment video.
Yeah.
All right.
So we wanted to talk about the future. Did we talk about the future yet of where you guys are?
We did a little bit, but I think you had something going on. You're doing in addition to the jail too, correct? What's going on with that?
Yeah. You know what, Bruce, I'll let Bruce talk on that, because Bruce recognized the liability and the risk factors involved in running a jail, and some of the consent decrees that jails right here in Idaho had to pay millions of dollars for. And Bruce has been spearheading that.
Yeah. As a county commissioner, it's our job to create the budgetary vision for the county and then make sure that it gets executed that way. And part of that job is limiting liability. And so in the jail, which is a very dangerous place, when you exceed your legal limit for a population, you have inmates sleeping on the floor, you open the door to a significant liability if somebody gets hurt, an inmate gets hurt or a deputy gets hurt. And so we have to do something about that, because that's part of my job. That's my fiduciary to the county citizen, is to make sure that we don't pay for it with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because someone gets hurt or killed. And it's just, we've seen so much growth here, and growth is the number one driver behind the crime. As more people move here, you're just going to have more crime. It attracts more people, becomes a bigger target of opportunity. And so we need a bigger jail. And we built out these jail pods about 5 years ago, but we left 2 of the pods empty shells. And I think we could have finished them for about, what, $3.5 million
at the time.
Yeah. So now we're looking at 7.5, between 7.5 and 10 million. That's taxpayer money.
Wow.
And so we need to get that done. We're just basically walking around. It's like driving your car without insurance, right? At some point, you can drive to the grocery store and you'll be fine. But at some point, you're going to get hit, or you're going to hit somebody. And that's when the financial penalty comes in. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is protect the taxpayer liability by expanding the jail and making sure that it's a much safer environment.
Are you getting much pushback on that, or is it just a matter of finding the funds at this point?
We have the funds. and we allocated the funds.
Mm-hmm.
So the pushback is usually at the board level. But as far as the community goes,
the former board was not acceptable to this whatsoever.
Was it just a matter of they don't want to spend any more money in general?
I don't think they understand it.
Yeah.
Because in essence, if you don't understand liability, then it's very difficult to try to explain to people how something could happen and it could cost a lot of money. I mean, we drive our cars with our seatbelt on, right? Because if we do get into an accident, we'll have some extra level of protection as opposed to just smashing into the windshield, right? So it's just understanding how liability works and how to mitigate it. It's a risk management focus, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the culture in county government has been very adversarial between the electeds. If you go back in time, they just didn't work well together. I think the previous sheriff had a lot of problems with the budget, trying to convince the Board of County Commissioners that they needed the money. I think in some situations, the money was asked for in A and it ended up being spent in B, which people feel a little bit misled in situations like that. And then the other part to this that people don't really understand is the elected officials, they are the bosses and run their departments. The Board of County Commissioners is a tribunal, 3 people, and they're supposed to be kind of a check and a balance between the money needs. And so when the sheriff says, I need this money because it'll mitigate taxpayer liability to complete the jail so we have more room for the inmates, county commissioners are left with the choice of giving that money, but then having to face the constituency to say, I have to raise your taxes. And where they fail, and this is why the analogy for a county commissioner in my mind is think of a M60 door gunner on a Huey in Vietnam. Their life expectancy was pretty short, right? Because we're the ones that have to go to people and say, we need to raise your taxes in order to cover this expense. And they never articulated why they had to do this. But what I found is that the more you explain this to people, the more they understand the challenges, the easier, the more they're going to say, we're behind you. Because if that's what you're going to use this money for, that's what we want this money to be used for. And that's kind of the dichotomy between the different elected officials. And I think why, in many respects, county commissioners over the years have not been able to articulate these problems, and that they're kind of afraid to ask the community for more money. And that's why we are where we are right now with respect to the staffing. I mean, the sheriff's office has been hemorrhaging people. I mean, we should never be spending millions of dollars to recruit and train people only to lose them because we're not willing to give people an extra $5 or 10 grand a year just to keep them, but also to keep that experience. And that's really invaluable because if you always have new people doing the job, you don't have anyone with enough experience to manage the different situations. Mm-hmm. And so that's how that kind of works.
We talked a little bit earlier about crime during Bruce was talking about liability and what have you. I got to tell you, we don't have the street crime that some of our cities in the Pacific Northwest do, like Spokane. But I have to tell you that in the event that we do have a robbery, an armed robbery, we have different laws here than we do in Washington. And we will chase you until the wheels fall off to apprehend you. So we don't have the street crime. When it does happen, very, very seldom, we're going to chase you and put you in jail. Most of our crime here is property crime, burglaries, theft, assaults, that kind of stuff. And generally there's a nexus between the victim and the suspect. But so I knew we were talking about crime a lot, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, hey, our crime is really, really
and
low.
that is something that I can speak to as well. I mean, every time that there's a gunshot or something, I get friends that call me and go, what's going on? Because they think I'm still connected with all this stuff, and I'll usually find out somewhere, but I usually tell them, I go, I'm willing to bet both parties there had some sort of history, had some sort of background. And I see that a lot. I mean, it's this guy, drug deal gone bad, whatever else. I mean, it's not mom and her kids walking down the street getting held at gunpoint. That just doesn't happen up here. But going back to real quick, since we do real estate and we've seen the boom and we've dealt with so many people moving up here, to the lay person, more people means more taxes, means more funding. Has that actually been the case for you to where we've actually brought in a significant amount more to the county or anything else? Or how is that affecting you?
Ha. I say ha. Yes, I want you to answer that.
Yeah.
Because
Well, the dirty little secret in Idaho is that growth doesn't pay for itself. Okay. It does not pay. We have an impact fee statute on the books. It is absolutely worthless. Okay. This statute was the perfect window dressing for a developer. It's set up so that you can only levy an impact fee for capital improvements, and capital improvements are defined as infrastructure that lasts 10 years or longer. Okay. Like a building. Can't use it for a patrol car because they only last about 3 or 4 years. That's not considered a capital improvement. Here's the kicker. After 8 years, if you haven't spent the money, you have to give it back. So the cycle for the investment is 10 years, but the limit to keep the money is 8 years. Right?
was this written by developers for developers? Who gave this statute to the legislator? Was this a big developer that did this?
We know it was written by him. I think the worst part is that it was approved by the legislature. And so what's happened, and this has been a challenge, just this past September, we reinstituted the mayor's meetings with the county commissioners. And because we need the cities to buy in and collect our impact fee. So we hired this consultant, and they developed an impact fee for jail beds. They developed an impact fee for the jail radios, which last 10 years or longer than 10 years. We've proven that. And we developed an impact fee for parks and waterways because we have about 30 boat ramps. And so that's infrastructure. It lasts longer than 10 years. And so we were asking the cities, help us collect that when you issue building permits. City said, we're not going to collect it for radios. Now we're talking about nickels, like $30 or something per unit. Won't collect that. Said, fine. It's $30. I'm not going to die on this hill with them. Then the next one was, we don't want to collect your parks and waterways impact fee because we have our own park impact fee. And we don't want our citizens to pay twice. So I said, sure, we'll shelve that today and we'll address it later. So the only thing left is a jail bed impact fee. Guess how much that is per home?
Ooh, can't be very much.
$551.
Oh, damn.
What?
Get some nice beds there.
Oh.
Tempur-Pedic.
This isn't for the bed. This is for the room, the concrete, the doors, everything,
Gotcha.
right? $551 per unit. That's when someone buys a brand new home, we collect $551 that goes toward the jail. So in order for us to generate about $15 million to pay for the next jail expansion within 8 years, we need to add, and this is assuming a 2/3 blend of residential and a 1/3 blend of commercial. We need to add 18,000 homes in 8 years.
Let's go.
And over 21 million square feet of commercial space, about another 110 Walmarts in Kootenai County until we've generated $15 million for the next jail expansion.
That seems unlikely.
It doesn't work. The math doesn't work.
How many Walmarts?
110 plus.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Super centers. Okay. We're going to need a reserve officer to patrol.
Definite full-time Walmart patrol.
They don't prosecute anyways.
So are you saying, Bruce, that as it currently stands, the people that currently live here are paying for the infrastructure for anybody who wants to move here? Is that
1,000%? Yes.
So I take that as a yes then.
Yeah. Growth is going to cause the county and all the cities to increase your taxes. Not that it grows with the growth, that the rate will be going up. And the other thing that people don't understand is that density leads to liberal policies. So if you like liberal policies, you will want density. Name one conservative city in this country. There's none.
No.
Right? Because at some point, when you were talking about gunfire, Dave,
Right.
I thought you were talking about gunfire up here because that's like the sound of liberty. Okay. When I lived in Baltimore, I heard gunfire. That was not liberty.
Yeah, you were in
Baltimore.
He was ducking.
Vast difference.
When you heard gunfire in Baltimore, he was ducking.
Yeah.
Up here, that's a good noise to hear, right?
Yeah.
You know? Well, at some point, someone's going to move up here. I already hear people at 11 o'clock at night shooting in my neighborhood, right? At some point, someone's just going to be shooting all night.
That's when you say, kids, get to bed.
Yeah.
What are you doing out there?
Today
You're 8 years old. What are you doing shooting at this time of night?
They go to bed at 11, all right? But when they're up till 2 or 3, you know? And so that's the point, is that someone is going to move in here and they're going to do something that bothers their neighbors, and that's going to drive somebody to run for office to say, I'm going to pass an ordinance so you can't do that. I already hear that from people who are some of the most solid conservative people I've ever met. And they've come up to me and said, can you pass a noise ordinance because of that Carter Lane thing?
Oh.
And those hot rods are too loud.
Speaking of which, didn't you beat the candidate that said that what happened on Sherman in May and June of 2020, he thought that was a horrible thing to happen?
Well, he bought into that Kool-Aid that professor in Georgetown University thought that it might have been illegal what happened here. Citizens showing up on street corners that are armed legally
to protect their community.
To protect their community. How's that illegal?
Yeah, that's a stretch.
You know, going back to what you just said about, it reminded me of, I had a conversation with somebody over 4th of July. Okay. Because obviously 4th of July, there's fireworks everywhere up here, and God bless it. I love it. That being said, you know, I had somebody come to me and they're newer up here. They moved up here a few years ago, and they're highly conservative, right? They're highly conservative. They moved up here a few years ago and they came to me. And this is right in the front of Keller Williams, and there was a bunch of other people around there. And so I made a point to make it a point while we were there, but he came up and he said, hey, he goes, you used to be a cop, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, what do I do? My neighbors were up until midnight shooting off fire. They were on top of their roof, shooting off fireworks complete. I got my little dog, he goes, what am I supposed to do? He's like, my dog can't fall asleep. I said, listen, I said, first of all, your dog is personal property here in Idaho. Your dog has no rights, and we're not going to give your dog rights. And I said, here's the thing. I'm like, the only thing you can do is you can call law enforcement and you can tell them about it. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you want more or less law enforcement in your life every day in North Idaho? Because if you do, that is the catalyst to it. Start calling for those types of things. Start making those things an issue instead of going across and making a relationship with your neighbor or putting your dog in a cage for the night. I don't know what else to tell you. But if we want more law enforcement, I mean, that is what I saw somebody conservative with a completely liberal policy that they wanted to protect their puppy. And I get it.
And that's because density, we're bumping into each other.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, when you're living, you know, on 100 acre lots, whatever you do isn't going to bother your neighbors. And so it's really important to understand that and Idaho is a very pro property rights state, but we are a very attractive state for people because other parts of the country, in my opinion, are really turning a pot. You know, those neighborhoods are going down.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to live like that. You look at California. How friendly is California to small business people? Not at all.
No,
right.
Not at all. They're just trying to figure out their tax department is one of the most efficient departments in their entire state.
Mm.
And so it's driving people to communities like this. And because of that, we're either going to grow and it's going to turn into those places they fled, or we're going to develop a growth model that mitigates that. And if they can't afford a house here, because that's going to be the consequence, the home prices are going to go up if you have less density, then hopefully they'll find another community that will be affordable for them.
You had been pushing the plot of land. Gosh.
The open space bond.
Yeah, the open space bond. Thank you. Yeah. And that is one of the tools you were talking about using to help mitigate growth, right?
There's 3 main tools that, as a county commissioner, that we can utilize to help mitigate growth. The first one is the comprehensive plan. Every 10 years, jurisdictions have to have a new comprehensive plan. And we updated ours in 2020. However, the survey data from the community was from 2008. Well, if you go back to that time, real estate was crashing. right? So people kind of wanted a little bit of growth because things were contracting. That's crazy to be using data that's now 16 years old for our future growth model. And so last week we were able to fund our survey for a new comp plan. And that's the beginning. So we get the survey data from the community, and that's what drives our comp plan, our zoning, our growth model. And that can withstand scrutiny in the court of law. So you have to have that first, a good comp plan. And think of the comp plan as like the guardrails that you're driving between. If the guardrails are very wide, lots of different types of development can occur. If they're narrow, it limits the kind of development that you can have here, right? And so anything that falls outside of those guardrails becomes a conditional use permit, and it has to go before the Board of County Commissioners. That's how you can mitigate growth. The second one is developing a standard of service with the county services. So right now, for example, the jail is beyond the legal limit every day for the last couple of years. Well, that's a red indicator. That is a numerical reason that you can say no to growth. You can't say no to growth just because you don't like growth. You have to have a numerical reason.
Right? What does that look like if you say no to growth? I mean, is that telling a developer you do not have approval for this project?
If you can give a good reason why, it can hold up in court. Because Idaho is a very pro-property rights state. So you're basically telling someone who owns property, I can't do something with my own property, even though it fits within the comp plan. And so you can actually say, not today, maybe tomorrow. And then the third prong to that approach is the open space. If you can buy up open space and never develop it, it is cheaper in the long run for your taxes. I think we were looking at about $40, $35 per household. If we borrowed the full $50 million, it'd be paid off in 20 years, and we would have open space parkland that everyone could use, and it could never be developed. And if you bought that open space, that's right where in front of the trajectory of where a city is growing, then you can kind of stop the city from taking on more land.
Less jails,
Right.
less schools, less highways.
I think, and I mean, it's always hard. I mean, we're growing everywhere, right? It's not just Idaho. I mean, the world is growing. I mean, other than some statistic I just saw that some countries are actually.
Well, we're growing because of that open border.
This is true too. I know. But I mean, the open space concept I've never heard about. I mean, it makes sense, but I've never heard about it. And obviously there's a financial disincentive for a lot of people for that to happen. A lot of people in our industry, a lot of people like that. There's a financial disincentive. So obviously you have to deal with those lobbyists, and you have to deal with people that are going to fight that, that idea.
Well, the people who are really resisting it, they just they have a healthy skepticism of what will government do with that money. But the bond was written in such a way that it could only be used to buy up undeveloped land and never develop it, and just make it public open space land. Oh. And people were very reluctant. They didn't really kind of trust us in that, but it was written very tightly so that it couldn't be used for the fairgrounds. It cannot be used for fairgrounds. It can only be used for open space parkland.
I was a big fan of that. I think it's a good idea, personally. There's always the person that's there are a lot of people up here, and I tend to be one of those, like, they don't want more taxes. So anytime they hear any more taxes, even if it's for a good reason, I think it's like, nope, I'm out. I
think once people are educated on it, then they're more favorable to it. But I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right there at the beginning, whoa. But then, hey, you don't have to pay for schools. You don't have to pay for jails. Right. You don't have to pay for highways. Then
so you mentioned that bond. Does that bond exist? Is there money somewhere to where that can happen?
We can only have a bond if 2/3 of the community votes to approve it.
Okay.
And we landed at around 48, 49%.
It's a big gap.
Yeah. I voted for it.
It's not insurmountable, but
right. Is it going to keep getting pushed? And
I'm an advocate for it. And the problem is that we didn't really allocate much taxpayer money to advertise it. And I didn't really want to, because you can't use taxpayer money to advocate for a bond. You can only use it to inform people about a bond. The real driver to get this across the finish line is going to be in the private sector, where people can raise money and have their own messaging. Now, one of the things that I am working on is developing renderings of what the parkland would look like, because I think a lot of people, their minds will wonder if they can't see the end game. So if you can start to see the end game of what we would do with this money and what it would look like, I think people would be a lot more receptive to it.
How large chunks of land are we talking? What's the potential?
The largest ones out there. I mean, 100, 200, 300 acres if we can work a deal with the
That's
landowners.
fantastic, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, Idaho's got a ton of public land, but the more the merrier. Like, let's keep it going.
Look, the success, especially I think from a law enforcement perspective, is to make this more of a bedroom community and less a sprawling suburbia with a lot of density.
AKA Meridian or down Boise area. Yeah. I think that's pretty unappealing, those areas.
And it's changing. There's a lot of people that moved there 10 years ago and they're wanting to move up here. They're wanting to go somewhere else already.
Has anybody driven to State Line area off the 90?
Where there's a lot going on over there.
Apartment complexes going up left and right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like north of there, I was through there the other day and I was like, whoa, like you go through there a couple months later and there's quite a bit of change in just a short amount of time.
Yeah. That's hard because we can get really fatalistic about this really quick. I mean, there's a trend that's happened just about anywhere. How do you stop it? I mean, if there's,
and I don't think anybody wants to say, hey, you know what, stop growth, but let's have a conversation on responsible growth,
right?
And how much it's going to cost this community and the property owners and the residents here in this community. Let's just have a conversation on it. How much is enough? Let's put a pause button on it and let's have a conversation.
Right.
And it's a tough topic because adding more inventory will potentially keep prices stable or lower. And a lot of people are having a hard time moving here, or their kids are having a hard time moving. We talked about this last time you were on. You had a good point about it.
But once you finish developing, then the prices go up. I've seen this. I've seen this back east where my sister purchased a starter condo and it never moved in price because they kept building new developments until the last parcel of land was developed. And then within like a couple years, it doubled in value. And so that's the thing, is that in the end, you're just prolonging the inevitable. And the question is, what kind of community do you want? And a community to me is defined by the people who live here. So if you keep bringing more and more people here, right, you're going to by default change the community. Again, it doesn't matter how conservative you are. If you don't like the fireworks going off, if you don't like your neighbor shooting in his range, which today he can do, it doesn't matter. That's going to change this community. And that's the same thing with the southern border. I mean, how can 300,000 people a month coming here illegally not change this country? It's going to change it. And the same concept holds at the local level.
And, people are selfish. All of us are. I mean, people are focused on what's important to them. So when you bring those things up, I mean, there's always something that it's that one policy. Well, I don't want fireworks because it's important to me, but it's more constraint on the citizens. It's more laws. I mean, every law that there is out there is a constraint on our rights in some way, shape, or form. There's some of them that we've looked and said, hey, the benefit here outweighs the risk. We don't want people to shoot other people. We're going to it's a restraint on your rights, but it's one that we've looked at and we've said, this is best for the community. We've bought off on it. We said, this is good. And the problem is that that's happening more and more, where there's more and more constraint. And that's going to lead to that's going to go right where all the big cities are going. If that happens.
You talked about a subject earlier. There's an election. There's an election coming up.
Apparently,
there is an election. There's a few of them.
Did you know this? Did you know anything about this?
Well, I'm just learning about it, and that means I got to clock in again, doesn't that?
Oh yeah, got to go back to the other job.
Campaign advisor.
That's the hardest job you've had. Yeah.
Since the last time we spoke, I have two opponents now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I haven't even seen that.
Yeah, I have two opponents.
I didn't know there was a third.
Okay.
I am still the only candidate that has jail experience, full-time jail experience from outside the jail.
And that's front door jail experience,
yes,
not back door jail experience. Okay.
That's true. That's true. So front door jail experience where I got to go home at the end of the shift. So I was a jail deputy. I worked a deputy sheriff as in the jail. I'm full-time patrol deputy. I was a sergeant. I was a field training officer. I was a lieutenant. I was a department head in charge of 2 contract cities. And I've been your sheriff for the last 3 years, going on 4. So
pretty good qualifications there, right there.
I think the community's pretty happy with where I'm at and what we've done together.
So what is it you're doing right now to just make sure that people remember that?
I've always been out in the community. So we're holding some events as Norris for Sheriff. We have one coming up on the 31st. We have another of January. That's going to be a Best Western. We have an association event, as I'm their endorsed candidate by 93%, on January 25th. We've got Nosworthy's coming up. We're going to do an event at Nosworthy's. Hey, Nosworthy's, if you've never had.
I have not. I got to go there.
You have never been
You
there?
haven't been to Nosworthy's?
No.
Okay.
Awesome burgers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm missing out. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going. All right,
Okay.
Dave, we're going to lunch. There.
We're going to have the Big Al is only going to be $5 on, I forgot what night
That's
we're doing
cash,
it, but
by
that's
the way.
gonna-
It's cash.
you know what?
Deal.
Cash
That's going to be
only.
February 29th, an event that only comes around once every 4 years. So
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Nosworthy's, February 29th from 4 to 7, $5 Big Al's.
I got to go try it. Just, I mean, why not? Can I handle that thing? Is
You
it
have
like
to.
one of those burgers you can't eat in one shot?
You can handle it.
Okay, all right. So I need
Yeah.
So you're
to.
embracing the public right now. You have a lot of stuff going on with that. What's the hot topic that people are asking? I mean, it always comes down to some sort of debate. The one person's coming at you and saying they want to change this. What's the big topic right now that people are asking about that's on everybody's minds?
Immigration, the southern border.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's on everybody's mind at every town hall survey that we do. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't help it. You're watching the news with people just streaming over the border.
Yeah.
I mean, kids,
Seems like
all
bad
kinds of-
tactics to me, but what do I know?
Seems like treason to me. I don't
Maybe
know.
that.
There are
Yeah.
people that are crossing that border that are enemies to the United States of America, and we know about it.
Yeah, I have a friend that works for. Well, he was down there working the border. He works for the feds, and he said the thing that surprised him the most was the military-aged Chinese guys that were coming over. Quite a few of them, and that struck me as odd.
And they walked across the Pacific to get over here, didn't
Right? How does this happen? What's
Yeah.
going on here? Why are there large numbers of them? It seems pretty suspicious
they?
to me.
Somebody's funding this.
Right.
Somebody's funding this. And if our leaders wanted to seal that border, they could.
Certainly.
With a pen stroke.
Mhm.
But they want this to happen. And that's something that people have to recognize, is that this isn't happening by accident.
Right.
I mean, if you just stop the remittances down to Mexico, the Mexicans would stop this immediately.
So, absolutely. But nobody's escaping to Mexico.
The stay in your own country policy
Well,
under the previous president.
but they're accepting the money. See, people come up here, they work, and then the money gets sent down to Mexico.
And so that kind of caveats into what I'm getting at. So if border patrol or border policy is the number one thing, and we're all the way up here, what is it? How is it affecting us? And what is it? What are the steps that you're taking to prevent
We're absolutely
impact?
We're absolutely being impacted by it. Every county is a border county. I am in negotiation with our legislators on how we can enact legislation to deter this type of behavior. Like forged documents. Forged documents, you can go to some areas of this nation and you can say, hey, my name is Jose Ortiz and I want a driver's license. And okay, you stay here. I'll be right back. They go around the corner. They get your social security number. They get your driver's license and they print it up right then and there. So we need to enhance some of our laws here. So we want to look at those types of things. We want to look at, what if you've never been issued a driver's license and you're operating a motor vehicle with no driver's license and no insurance? There are some states that say, hey, if you're doing that, then guess what? What are we doing? We're taking your car for 30 days.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember that back in the day. Not anymore. I'm sure.
Not anymore.
Not in California.
Yeah. So there's certain laws that I'm in communication with that we want to present to the legislature. And these things, unfortunately, take not 1 year, but generally takes 2, 3, or 4 years before these become laws.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have issues on the northern border with Canada?
No, we don't.
Have you been to the northern border, Idaho? It's like 4 people there.
Yeah. It's like, what's
They
going on
search
here?
your car every time. You're the only person there for an hour.
They're bored.
Yes, they search me every time. My goodness.
I haven't been up there since I've been
Oh,
here
yeah.
because they were all shut down and wanted me to get the
okay.
job, and I'm not doing that.
They flagged your license plate for
They
something.
must
I don't
have.
know.
I
Yeah.
know.
You got the
You're
luck.
on the database.
For
Whatever.
sure. Yeah. So what's the overall state of the county? Is the county in good shape?
Yes, generally.
Okay.
The big question mark right now is this Justice Center expansion.
Oh yeah, right down the street.
Yep.
For me.
It started off at $22 million. That was total project cost, $18.5 million construction cost. Then 6 months later, we heard it's going to be north of $30 million. And to the sheriff's credit, when the presentation was given for the $22 million, and this is on video for the world to see, he asks, I thought it was great. He said, how often are you right with your estimates? And I think they said something like 80 to 90% of the time, our estimates are right. And often we come in below. And 6 months later, the construction company that was trying to earn the project in their presentation said, oh no, this building is going to be north of 30 million. Now, what blew my mind is that no one on the Board of County Commissioners decided to haul that architectural firm before them and say, okay, folks, it's only been 6 months. I'm not sure inflation in 6 months would make a building go up 60% from your estimate.
So what you're saying is Sheriff Robert Bob Norris asked this question, and that's how it's going to be on the ballot. Sheriff Robert Bob Norris said, how often are you right, and are you likely going to come in at budget?
These were all the extra benefits that the community got when they elected you.
I understand.
It's the bottom line.
I understand. It's the cream on the top, right? Just the little cherry, right?
It just keeps coming out more and more and more stuff that you're bringing. So,
well, I saw they have a crane down there now, so things are getting serious at the Justice Building. Did you see that? Have you been down that way? There's a giant crane
there
that
almost every day.
hangs over Northwest. Yeah, it's getting pretty serious.
Yep.
So I guess it's going to be awesome.
So. We'll see where it lands. We still don't know how much this project is going to cost us total.
Wow.
It just kills me, know, and then we were presented with 35 million, and I thought that's what we were looking at. Then it turns out that there were other numbers being discussed kind of behind the scenes without the board's knowledge, without the finance director's knowledge, of 38.5, 39 million, right? And all of a sudden, I said, we need to hire someone who really knows what the heck they're doing. Hire the expert and have them do the work for you. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do the work because you won't know what questions to ask. And so I think next week will be the big reveal of where we're going to come in at. Now, the good news is that the construction estimate was 35 million. That was last March. They're coming in at about 30.5 million. So that's a $4.5 million savings. That's good. We don't want to deplete our savings. It's really important that we don't deplete our savings. We have about 40 million plus or minus right now. And we need to keep about 20 in reserves for emergency operations. If for some reason we're not collecting taxes on time, the state doesn't provide their sales tax revenue, something like that, we have this money as a buffer. But the rest of the money is really to be used for long-term capital projects. We don't even budget that right now in our budget process.
Any of the long-term budget?
No.
Wow.
Dave, you know how many training facilities the sheriff's office has, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, zero.
Yeah, okay.
If I get 6 more, I'll have a half a dozen. Yeah, I got 0.
No, I know.
No planning.
Well, I feel like with the growth up here, having that, we're at the point now, or even just, we need a new high school. We need a new middle school. And there's so much that goes into it. And the sheriff's department is just another nugget that needs something. And honestly, I don't even know how you guys do that stuff, but there's a lot of need. And if we're not planning for that large infrastructure for years to come, I don't know where that puts us.
Well, one of the problems up here is that government is extremely decentralized. You've got your highway districts, you've got your school districts, you've got your cities, you got your water districts, your fire districts, right?
Right.
So if the citizens aren't staying on top of all of those different districts, which is a huge challenge, then things are going to slip through the cracks, right? That impact fee that we were talking about earlier,
right?
There's only so much that the county can levy impact fees for. Then if you want to expand the roads, the highway districts have to levy their own impact fee. We have nothing to do with the roads in the county.
Wow.
Dave, I'm kind of glad that you don't know a lot about this, because we swear you in as a Kootenai County Deputy Sheriff, that reserve
Don't you
Kootenai
read that.
County Deputy Sheriff.
I got ordered.
Then guess what? You know what? You're going to be able to build your resume on how this county government works.
Yeah, I built a resume.
We're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Like, can he come
Thank
in
you.
right at? I mean, are there sergeant reserves or?
God, I think we're over
lieutenant? Is that a
time,
thing?
huh?
Yeah.
No, it still
Goodness.
says we
Can
have
we?
a lot
I'm
more
trying to
time.
negotiate you a pay raise on top of the nothing that you'll be getting paid.
Still says we have a lot more time. there, Dave.
Yeah, and I think we need to get him sworn in first so he
Yeah.
can figure it all out after.
Well,
Okay.
I'm
Goodness.
down. I'm down for doing it right now. But
I'm waiting until like the end of days, and then we can do the swearing in thing. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah, there'll be a lot of swearing in at that point.
Well,
And a lot of
I am
swearing.
a firm believer that North Idaho is the largest concentration of retired law enforcement and veterans anywhere. So
There is.
nowhere better to be.
Yep.
If things
this
go
is
bad.
freedom's last stand right here,
I fully believe that.
and I'm your law, order, and freedom sheriff.
That's awesome.
There you go.
I just have fond memories of you at the 4th of July parade riding in the back of a pickup truck with I believe you had a revolver on your hip. Maybe it was just an image I had. I don't know, but
It was a Smith & Wesson 686
I
plus.
thought so. That was pretty
Yes,
cool.
it was.
That was like the first year I moved here. I was like, yep, I'm in the right spot.
That's right.
That was very awesome.
That's right. With a hot load.
Yeah. Well, we're pushing up on an hour, and I know we're all busy, but do you guys have any other things you were itching to talk about?
Well, I think we covered. Did we cover it all, Bruce?
The only thing I'd like to say is 4 years ago, what do we have? 5 or 6 people running
Oh
for
yeah,
the sheriff's office
yeah. We had 5.
to be sheriff. Yeah. And, there's a lot of things about Bob that I got to learn when I was working with him. And I'd like to think it was both ways, because in a partnership, you kind of have to bring different things to the table where you complement each other. That's all you brought.
That's all I got with me right now.
But one of the things I learned is that Bob genuinely knows law enforcement in and out. But what makes him such a great sheriff is his temperament and the fact that he understands people. He understands what's important to them, and he focuses on that, but executing the law enforcement side of it, which is a business. But there's the community. You're there to serve the community. And a lot of times in law enforcement, and I'm sure you've seen it, there's a little bit of that badge heaviness type of an attitude. Well, I'm in charge here.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what to do. No. The sheriff serves the people. And Bob recognizes that so well. And it's evident with what's happened since he's become sheriff and how much he's engaged the community, how even the deputies are seeing a very different way of being a law enforcement professional compared to the culture that was here before. And so it's a testament to what kind of person Bob Norris is.
Golly, Bruce, go ahead. Tell him some more.
Okay, is that a
Go ahead.
a
Tell
little,
him.
you
Tell
got
him
a little
some
water
more.
on your face
golly,
there dripping
Bruce.
down?
You go. Tell him how I did it.
I just
tell
want
him.
what's
Tell
in
him how
my
much.
wallet now.
Tell him how much
I
more.
did my job.
Tell him some more. How much I did this.
So it sounds like next time Dave's going to get sworn in as a Kootenai County Sheriff's Deputy, Sergeant. I got your promotion, bro. Sheriff.
Well, if it's a reserve, we can make him anything he wants.
Oh, perfect.
Sure,
Captain.
Yeah, sure.
I got you.
Yeah, you can be a reserve. You can be
I
a
got
captain.
you. He'd be a great captain.
Perfect.
You were a captain in San Bernardino County, so there we go. And
Carrying fire axe.
Sheriff Norris said he's going to wear my CHP trooper hat.
Oh.
Conveniently located right behind him.
Oh.
He has a big head. It'll fit. Might be a little loose.
I thought you took that down.
No, I intentionally did not. Just got to let that hanging up there. You've worked with some chippies in your day, I'm sure. And
Oh, sure did. We had unincorporated area, and
Yep.
we were partners back then. Absolutely. we were.
yeah. Same. Yeah. That's what I enjoyed too. I always love working with deputies close by. It's a good bond, good brotherhood. On that note, thank you, Sheriff Bob Norris and Kootenai County Commissioner Bruce Mattare and Dave and myself. So thank you guys. That was a good conversation.
Thank you guys
Appreciate
for
it.
coming. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And good luck with
Do it
everything.
again sometime.
Can I read it then?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Hey, stay
the
tuned
button.
for our next episode
Press the
where we
record
swear in Dave Fowler as a deputy sheriff for the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
Captain.
Okay.
And we're done.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Nice.
Goodness, get off.
All right.
I'm out.
And we're done.